It's time for another episode of The Get Up. What's the Get Up? It's a slingshot. It's a chance to pull back your day and start with encouragement, motivation, and practical actions you can apply to the goal you care about the most. Today, I want to talk about the 5 steps I use to write all of my books. Now, according to the New York Times, 81% of Americans want to write a book. That's a really popular goal. Next to losing weight, it's probably our most popular goal in the country. And that means a lot of you right now watching this might want to write a book, especially when you're stuck at home. This is one of those seasons where there's more people at home thinking, okay, I've got an idea. I want to figure out how to turn it into a book. I've written 6 books, including a couple of New York Times bestsellers, and I have a 7th book coming out next year. And so I thought it'd be fun today to share the 5 steps that I use to write my books. These are really big actions. We could probably do a 10-hour course on what it takes to write a book, but I want to give you at least the 5 big steps that I personally use to write all of my books. The first thing I do is I find a question I'm willing to spend 2 years answering. I look for a question I can't stop thinking about, like a haunting question, a question that just won't leave me alone. For one of my books, Do Over, the question was, why are some people great at handling transitions and some people aren't? Were there patterns? Could you prepare for change? Maybe even enjoy it? Were there things you should invest in that kind of make you recession-proof? Are there deliberate things and steps you can take? And I thought about that a lot. I'd gone through job transitions in my own life. I'd been laid off, I'd been fired, I'd been hit by a recession, and I thought, okay, I want the next job transition to be a lot easier and to go a lot better. What do I need to do to make sure that happens? That was the question for Do Over. The question for Finish was, why is it easier for me to start projects than it is to finish them? Why is it really, really easy to start something and really, really hard to finish it? And can I learn how to go from being a chronic starter into a consistent finisher? Is that something I can learn? And so I started to think about that and I started to work on that. So the first thing I do is I find a question I'm willing to work on, think about, build, lean into. The second thing I do is I create an idea notebook. You can use anything you want. You can use an app, you can use a physical notebook, you could use a file folder full of ideas, but I just start gathering ideas. I use Evernote. It's an app that's really easy to use, and I just start gathering anything that's even remotely interesting to me related to that question. So I don't judge here. At this point, I'm not judging the quality of the idea at all. At this stage, you're going for quantity, not quality. So any idea is good enough to be thrown into the folder, and a lot of them are ridiculous. A lot of them won't make the book, but you need a bunch of ideas to make a compelling book. So the idea could be something like, I remember I wrote on a note card, one of the ideas I wrote down was that Billy Joel, for his concerts, he does concerts at Madison Square Garden. He's got a baller lifestyle. He takes his helicopter from his mansion on Long Island and does a show at Madison Square Garden and then helicopters back. Pretty nice. But I read once that he stopped selling the first 2 rows of his concerts because what was happening is that rich, bored people would sit there and there was no energy. He couldn't feel any energy off those people. So he started to give those front row tickets away to people that came to the concert that seemed really excited because he wanted really excited people because he could see them, he could feel that, he could respond to that. And I thought, maybe there's an idea there about who do you surround yourself with in your life? Who do you surround yourself with? Who are the people that are speaking into your life? Who's on your front row? Will that end up in a book? I don't know, but I'm gathering ideas. The third thing I do is I put the ideas on note cards. I like to go physical at this point. I like to take 200, 300, 500 maybe even ideas and put them on note cards. And then I put them up on a wall in my office. And they're all over the place. It looks a little bit Beautiful Mind at this stage, but my goal with this stage is I want to see patterns. I want to be able to say, okay, wow, this idea is related to this idea and related to this idea. Or, wow, when I look at them all like this, 40 of these ideas are related, 40 of these ideas are connected. There might actually be a book here. These other things, like Maybe that's a blog, maybe that's a podcast, maybe that's just a question I have, but I'm starting to see that these are shifting into a real big question, a real big opportunity for me to create something that's helpful, create something that's interesting, create something that's marketable. Okay, so I'm looking for patterns. And again, I'm putting them up on the wall. I'm not writing the whole idea down, but I'm writing what I call a gingerbread trail. So I'm putting keywords. So for the Billy Joel idea, I might say, Billy Joel, front row, who do you surround yourself with? That's all that's on the note card. And that's enough of a gingerbread trail for me to get back to the main idea that's in my Evernote folder. The fourth thing I do is I start to write. Some people love an outline. I'll have a loose outline, but sometimes an outline is crippling to me. If I get too perfectionistic about it, what I do is I have to have a perfect outline. Until I have an outline, I can't start writing. And it's kind of a back and forth for me. Like I have a rough outline, but then I write a ton. And then I go back and shape the outline based on what I wrote. And then once I have the outline, I go back and rewrite. And so it's kind of this dance, but I can't make, like for me, having a perfect outline can't be the key to then writing. I have to write first. I say I have to write myself into the book. So I write some terrible first drafts. I write a ton of copy. I've said that before. I once sent an editor 70,000 words and she sent me back 48,000. Like she cut tens of thousands of words. So like I know I'm going to have more words than actually end up in the book, and that's okay. Sometimes as a writer you're like, no, I can't have any wasted words. You're going to have a ton of wasted words. And Lamont talks about that a lot, like that terrible first draft. So I'm writing and I try to write so fast that fear can't keep up. Fear can't keep up. The fifth thing I do is I edit like a crazy person. I edit. This is the machete part of the process where I've got a cold heart and I'm just chopping, and I'm editing and I'm going. And I'm not the only one doing that. My wife is helping with that. My editor obviously is helping with that. Sometimes I'll send it to friends, but I'm cutting down, trying to remove everything that's not helping the narrative, everything that's not moving it forward. I remember I had an editor say to me once, this story is really, really funny. Like it's really funny. It's really fun. I could tell you had a good time writing it, but how does it serve the reader? How does it serve the narrative? And I think a good editor asks that. A good editor is willing to say, these 5 pages I think were fun for you to write. I don't think they're related to where we're going in the book. These 5 pages were so enjoyable for you to do, and it's great. You got to have fun writing, but they're not pushing the narrative forward. They're not pushing the story forward. They're not serving the writing process. And so those are my 5 steps. I'll review them quickly if you want. 1, I find a question that I'm willing to spend years answering. 2, I start an idea notebook. I start to collect ideas. 3, I put all of those ideas, one idea at a time, on a note card, and I put it up on my wall so that I can see patterns. 4, I write a terrible first draft. Sometimes a terrible 5th draft. Sometimes a terrible 3rd draft. I have to write a lot. And 5, I edit like a crazy person. Now, I know some people will say, well, you can write a book in a weekend or in a week. I think that's true. You can write a bad book in a weekend. You can write a bad book in a week. But for me, at least my process, it usually takes about a year to 2 years of working on something. And I start when I'm finished with the last book. So I just finished my 7th book. Like we're right now in the kind of the proofreading stage. So I'm already gathering ideas for the next book because I want to do the idea phase. So I'm in the gathering process. I'm trying to figure out what's a question, what's something that I'm really curious about. That's how I write books. Those are the 5 steps. And I hope that if you've got a book idea, you'll work through the next part of that. The next part might be, what's the question? Might be gathering the ideas. Maybe you're already in the terrible draft stage, and then you're going to edit. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks for watching The Get Up. If you're watching this on YouTube, go subscribe, go like. I really, really appreciate that. Have a great rest of your day.